Welcome to the Explainer. When we think about biblical archaeology, it's super easy to just picture grand temples, ancient battles, and epic historical events kind of floating in a vacuum. But here is the really fascinating truth. Those ancient ruins and massive historical shifts are entirely shaped by the literal ground they sit on. Today, we're exploring exactly how the geographical arena of the ancient Near East dictated the rise and fall of empires. Now, if I asked you to picture the landscape of this region, you might immediately think of, well, endless sand and dry, arid deserts. But is the Holy Land really just a dry desert? No way. The answer is a resounding no. As you're going to see, this landscape is intensely diverse, featuring everything from lush valleys and snowy peaks to massive geological rifts, all packed into a remarkably small space. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our itinerary for today's Explainer. First, the geographical arena. Second, the Fertile Crescent. Third, the Levant Land Bridge. Fourth, the diverse Galilee region. And finally, the Great Rift Valley.
All right, Section 1, the geographical arena and the concept of Yediai Haaretz. Let's focus on the intense human connection to this specific, localized terrain.
To truly understand the archaeology here, we've got to look at how people actually interact with the geography. Back in the late 19th and 20th centuries, as waves of Jewish immigrants, or olim, arrived in the region, they were taken on these excursions called Yadiat Haaretz, which translates to knowledge of the land. Pioneering scholars who essentially merged archaeology with geography totally championed these trips. It was just a brilliant way for people to build a strong bond with their new physical landscape. It proves that connecting with the literal soil is, frankly, the very first step to understanding the history buried right inside it. Moving on to Section 2, the Fertile Crescent. Let's take a step back and get a macro view of the entire ancient Near East. So this right here is the Fertile Crescent, a term originally coined by James Breasted over at the University of Chicago. It describes this massive crescent-shaped strip of arable, farmable land stretching all the way from the Persian Gulf, up through Mesopotamia, over the mountains, down through the Levant, and right into the Nile Valley. This arable strip basically acted as the ultimate cradle of civilization. It was ground zero, the home base where all those massive ancient empires, like the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians, were born, grew, and thrived. Section 3, the Levant Land Bridge. How exactly did those massive empires interact with each other? Let's zoom in a bit and look at the highly strategic choke point right between them. Historical geographers use some incredibly evocative names for this area, like the Sacred Bridge or the Land Between. And it makes sense because the southern Levant is essentially a very narrow corridor. Think about it from a geographical standpoint. If you're a big empire looking to expand, you literally can't go east because of a massive, impassable desert. And you can't go west because, well, you're completely blocked by the Mediterranean Sea. You have to march straight through this narrow land bridge. Because of this, it became a highly strategic, endlessly fought-over choke point from time immemorial. The grand architecture here was frequently reduced to rubble simply because massive, destructive armies were constantly moving back and forth across this bridge. To really wrap our heads around this corridor, let's build a mental 3D elevation map. Imagine you're walking west to east, starting right at the Mediterranean Sea. First, you hit the flat coastal plain. Then, you step up into the Shephelah, which is this region of rolling foothills and valleys. Keep pushing east, and you climb up into the steep central hill country. Then suddenly, whoosh, the land drops violently away into the deep Rift Valley before climbing steeply back up onto the high eastern plateau in Transjordan. Seriously, it's a topographic roller coaster. Now, branching off that central hill country are some really unique topographical features. Take Mount Carmel, for instance. It isn't just a single peak. It's a long ridge jutting northwest directly into the Mediterranean Sea. The early Egyptians actually had a fantastic nickname for it. They called it the antelope's nose. And honestly, it perfectly describes how it physically points right out over the water. Just inland from that nose lies one of the absolute most critical pieces of geography in all of human history, the Jezreel Valley. Because there are rugged mountains everywhere else, this valley is literally the only easy flat route to get from the coastal plains straight into the Jordan Valley. It was basically an ancient interstate highway. And since environmental determinism dictates that armies are always going to take the path of least resistance, this specific valley turned into the ultimate battleground of antiquity. Believe me, it's no coincidence that this valley is the legendary site of the biblical Armageddon. All right, Section 4, the diverse Galilee region.
Moving north from that ancient highway, we enter the famous Galilee.
The Galilee is a total study in contrasts, and it naturally divides into upper and lower regions. The Upper Galilee features steep, rugged escarpments sloping all the way up to modern Lebanon. It is tough, highly isolated terrain. In fact, pioneer Israeli geographer Yohanan Aharoni had to do some really extensive surveys up there just to find these early hidden iron eye villages. Now, compare that to the Lower Galilee. The Lower Galilee is defined by a series of accessible east-west valleys. Because it's so much easier to traverse, it was highly cultivated and heavily settled throughout history. And this brilliantly illustrates how topography actually creates local lore. You've probably heard those famous biblical stories of sudden, terrifying storms springing up on the Sea of Galilee, threatening to capsize fishing boats, right? Well, those storms are a direct result of the geography. Winds blow off the Mediterranean Sea, they get squeezed and accelerated as they funnel eastward through those exact east-west valleys of the Lower Galilee we just talked about, and then they whip across the lake, violently colliding with the steep escarpment of the Golan Heights on the opposite side. The geography literally builds a giant wind tunnel.
Now, what's really wild is that ancient rulers went to extreme length to exploit this dramatic geography. Way up in the north is Mount Hermon, the highest point in the region, and it's usually snow-capped. According to a legend recorded by the historian Josephus, King Herod the Great used to entertain guests at the temple in Jerusalem, and naturally, he wanted ice for their drinks. So he would actually have massive blocks of ice and snow chipped off the peak of Mount Hermon, loaded into wagons, and hauled all the way south to Jerusalem. Just imagine the logistics of getting an ice cube in antiquity.
Section 5. The Great Rift Valley. For our final section, we're heading east and dropping down into the absolute most dramatic feature of the entire landscape. The Great Rift Valley is this massive geological trench that runs straight down the eastern side of the region, completely separating the west from the east. But listen, this isn't just a valley, it's a literal tectonic seam. This is the exact meeting point where the massive African and Asian tectonic plates are grinding against each other. As it travels south, this rift plunges so deep that it becomes the lowest dry point anywhere on the surface of the Earth. Because these plates are constantly shifting north and south, they inject some incredibly violent seismic action directly into both biblical and modern history. Massive earthquakes are just a regular occurrence here. The prophet Amos famously dated his oracle to the great earthquake around 750 BC. Then, in 31 BC, a massive quake completely shattered the settlement of Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were copied. And even as recently as 1927, another massive modern quake caused tremendous damage. The ground here is quite literally alive. Sitting right inside this massive rift are two incredibly famous but entirely opposite bodies of water. Up north, you have the Sea of Galilee, which is shaped sort of like a harp. It's filled with sweet fresh water and has supported a rich, teeming fishing industry from time immemorial. But as the rift drops further below sea level heading south, the water flows into the Dead Sea. And because the Dead Sea is at the lowest point on Earth, the water has absolutely nowhere to go. There's no outlet. It just sits there and evaporates, leaving behind a body of water that is so extremely salty it is completely incapable of supporting aquatic life. It's fascinating. Two lakes, one single fault line, and absolute environmental opposites. But geography isn't always just some static background. Humans can push back. Just north of the Sea of Galilee was the Hula Basin. Originally, this was a massive marshy swamp, and it acted as a perfect breeding ground for malaria-carrying mosquitoes. But when early Jewish immigrants arrived, they actually purchased this land. At great personal cost, suffering, and just incredible effort, they engineered the landscape. They drained the swamp and completely transformed a deadly malaria-filled basin into highly fertile, productive farmland. Modern inhabitants radically altered their own geographical destiny. So what does this all mean? We've looked at massive land bridges, earthquake-producing tectonic plates, wind tunnel valleys, and perfectly placed battlegrounds. How does knowing this literal ground change your understanding of the history that happened upon it? Well, when you realize that the environment actively directed ancient kings, sparked famous biblical storms, and literally decided the fates of empires, the ruins stop being just dusty old stones. The history comes vividly, dynamically alive. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer of the ancient geographical arena, and I hope you keep questioning the ground beneath your feet.